I'm really happy to welcome Jenna Ellis, my buddy, back to the podcast. Jenna is former Trump attorney, and she's also starting a new podcast with the Salem Podcast Network. This podcast, mine, is part of the Salem Podcast Network. So this is wonderful, Jenna. Kind of welcome to the team. By the way, you can go to salempodcastnetwork.com and subscribe to Jenna's upcoming show now. Jenna, you told me that you are at Disney World. What are you doing? What are you doing there?
I am escaping reality right now. It's better to be in fantasy land than in Joe Biden's America right now. So I had to come just for the weekend to get a little bit of magic, come to Florida, which is the freest state right now in all of America. It's great that Ron DeSantis is doing such a good job. So I think for all of us, sometimes we just need to escape politics, but happy to come on, Dinesh, of course, and had to do that from Disney World today. But I found hopefully a background that's not too, Mickey Minnie.
Not at all. Well, let me ask you this. There's so much going on. Biden is producing disaster, as it seems, on every front, right? He's got the border crisis going, and then he's got all this extravagant spending that he's pushing on one side, and then we've got the Afghan disaster. It seems hard that he could achieve so much catastrophe in a few months. So, when we think back to Jimmy Carter, he was a complete nincompoop, but of course his disasters were spread out over 4 years. Talk about what do you think is if you had to name the single most alarming and disturbing thing that Biden has done with maybe the longest term consequences, what would that be and why?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think overall, his absolute abuse for executive power is going to have the longest term consequences. When he is clearly flouting the rule of law, he's not staying within the margins of the Constitution openly and willingly, then that shows that he's not willing to actually be the commander in chief of the United States of America. He's just a tyrant. And tyrants, of course, will have arbitrary and completely capricious decisions. That's what we've seen with the disaster that's going on in Afghanistan. That's what we're seeing now with these vaccine mandates, that he's even contemplating that at the federal level. There are so many different abuses that if he is not reined in by the Supreme Court and by federal courts to say, no, we don't have a tyrant in the United States of America, that will have the longest term precedential consequence.
Let's talk for a moment about the vaccine mandate. I support vaccines, but I don't support vaccine mandates. Here's my question. You're a lawyer, Harvard Law School, Jenna. Where is the authority in the Constitution for the president or the executive branch to impose a vaccine mandate? Is there one?
Yeah, well, and proud University of Richmond School of Law, actually. So just have to give them a shout out. But no, there's absolutely no powers in the U.S. Constitution that's provided to the federal government. The government not only is a separation of powers, which is how we make sure to check tyranny, but also specific enumerated powers. We have the 9th and 10th Amendment for a reason, which says that all powers that are not expressly given to the federal government are reserved to the states or to we the people. And so there is nothing whatsoever within the U.S. Constitution that provides Congress or the chief executive or the executive branch to do anything like these types of vaccine mandates. That's why President Trump was so very clear that he would provide resources, recommendations, and supports to the states so that the government that is closest to us, that we can control best, that we can participate in best, they're the ones that actually have the authority, if they even do under the state constitutions, to implement some health and safety regulation. I do believe under any theory for any branch of government, that type of vaccine mandate is too coercive. It's unconstitutional for a variety of reasons. And I do think the analysis changes after today when the FDA ultimately has approved at least the Pfizer vaccine. I think there are still some very good arguments that we have to, as individuals, have the ability to refuse under a theory of informed consent. And we also can't be compelled by our government, whether or not there's a small punitive sanction, that may be okay, but a government should never be able to coerce someone to take a vaccine.
When we come back, I want to ask Jenna Ellis about some other, let's call them zones of lawlessness, the treatment of January 6th protesters, but also what's happening on the southern border. We'll be right back.